DV, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, not too much. Just keeping up with everything. It's we got a little late night news dump last night.
So it's like, I get I think people thought it was just about a done deal, and the last couple of weeks had gone really well for Nebraska. You get the visit after the visit, then the comeback visit, and then you listen to Trae Taylor talk. I mean, this is kind of how you want Nebraska to recruit, right? It can appear to be slow motion, but I always tell people slow motion is better than no motion, right? Like they do their due diligence building what they think is a long-term relationship. Sometimes it's going to pay dividends. Like this time, sometimes it won't. How do you how do you rank or rate how they went through this recruiting process with Taylor?
Yeah, I it's really impressive when you consider he's a 27 prospect, of course, and like yeah, like I know, like if you're like someone that hasn't been super plugged into this recruitment and you see 27 quarterback commits, it's like, oh, he's 2 years away from even enrolling. Why should I care? You should care because this is a kid that's been essentially going through this recruiting process since he was in like sixth grade.
Yep.
He's been going through this since middle school. I noted it yesterday. He visited Michigan over a dozen times. He visited Notre Dame close to 10 times. He's visited some of these programs multiple times over the years, and so when you look at all of that and you zoom out and you look at this recruitment too, LSU's been in this for multiple years. A&M's been in this for multiple years. Illinois is also building this for multiple years. Nebraska offered in October. And then Nebraska got him on campus 4 times and just steadily built that relationship and really hit the fast forward button once Dana Holgerson, joined the staff and they started to really key in on finding a 27 guy. And it kind of just turned out to be Taylor. But I think again, if I was a fan out there and I wasn't sure who Trey Taylor was or really familiar with this recruitment, I would take some comfort in the fact that everything he said yesterday, the way he's handled this whole process, he's shut down. He's as shut down as you can get for a 27 prospect. Of course, other schools are going to try and flip him away, but you have to credit Nebraska for just the fact that they were able to trigger his ability to want to make this decision early because he could have carried this as long as he wanted to. He felt almost like triggered's not the best way to put it because I know that, but triggered to make a decision. And it was because of the pressure Nebraska had kind of put on and the strength of the relationship he had built with the program over the last few months.
I get it, it can be young person specific in terms of recruiting methodology, but it appears to be some overlap in terms of whether it's getting a guy out of the portal, the Spindler courtship, the Pritchett courtship, the Marty Brown courtship. They didn't offer Trey until October. On the surface, it could look a certain way, but at the end of the day, don't you kind of get the sense that this is as much about Nebraska doing their due diligence on the player as much as it is the player doing their due diligence on Nebraska?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's communicated in a way that it's like, hey, like it's a two-way street. Like respect's a mutual thing. Like you got to come earn it. And I think Matt Rule said it best. Just talking, he said it about when talking about in-state recruits, and it just applies in general in this day and age when spots are so limited. If you think you deserve a shot, come prove it at camp, and it's just kind of that's kind of the method is yeah, we'll believe in you. And we, with certain guys, it's like, okay, we see the traits we believe, but like if you're out there, you truly believe you deserve an offer from Nebraska, like come camp. And that's just kind of what's been the talk to like underclassmen recruits that don't really have offers, or even older guys that want to earn an offer. Has just been that.
Mm. Tim, as somebody who is pretty deeply in this, obviously, what's the importance of getting your quarterback in a class this early in terms of how it can affect the rest of your class?
It just gives you an opportunity now to utilize him as a peer recruit and also build around him. We already saw yesterday some of the reaction from some top recruits. And Tavius Ellis, the top 70 prospect for us, top 5 slot receiver in the country. All of a sudden, he's interested in Nebraska. I talked to him yesterday. He's planning to visit here soon. He's got relationships with some other guys. There's a 4-star offensive tackle named Cameron Wagner out of Illinois. Nebraska's after that. Those two have built a relationship over the years, have just discussed playing together. Ahmad Hudson, the number 1 tight end in the 27 class, those two developed a bit of a relationship. I texted with Ahmad yesterday, and Ahmad was like, this is something that might help me with my decision, knowing that, Trey's going to be at Nebraska now. And then you ask around a little bit too, and it's like, okay, yeah, well, on the 7-on-7 trail, Trey plays for 24K, which is an Orlando-based team that has Devin Jackson and Danny Odom, 2 Nebraska 26 targets. He's going to be in their ears. Those two are pretty excited about the fact that Trey's coming to Nebraska. And then Trey, the last time he was in town, he visited with Ryan Mosley and Luke Sorensen, 2 top 26 wide receiver target, a top 26 tight end target. And so he's going to be working to peer recruit those guys now too. Had Zane Rowe in town over the weekend, 4-star athlete out of Denton Geyer. Zane said just while in town, Trey came up to him and was like, hey, I want to play with you. Do you want to play with me? Like, let's, we can make this happen. And so that's that, because of Trey, like I said, he's been doing this recruiting thing for so long. And because he's been on the 7-on-7 circuit, playing these national tournaments, been to all these college camps and recruiting camps and things, he's built some really strong relationships nationwide. And a lot of those guys are now keeping a closer eye on what's happening in Nebraska. And this will affect the 27 class. Of course, it's a great way to get that jump started, but it helps the 26 class as well. Because a lot of these guys, yeah, Dylan Raiola peer recruiting them certainly helps, but Dylan Raiola is not going to be on campus the whole time those guys are on campus. Trey Taylor, more likely than not, is going to have an opportunity to be those guys' quarterback at some point down the line.
How do you think Coach Rule and this staff, considering they tag team so well with multiple coaches being involved with guys, can set up a deal with Dylan and then Dayton, who we forget about? And because unfortunately, I think he gets thrown into, well, he's just Dylan's a Raiola, brother. Just Dylan's brother, which I think is incorrect. And then Trae Taylor, where they've managed to put together an extremely competitive, at least on paper, quarterback room quietly, and an era where we know that quarterbacks don't typically stick around.
Yeah, that's part of is just Thomas. I think a lot of credit goes there of just his identification skills to find the right guys and the right fits that are willing to compete. And just the state of college football right now, and being able to sell like, hey, like, we're going to develop you, you're going to get your reps. Like, I think that's been the pitch primarily, but also with all of these guys, it's the post Dylan, like all of these, like, you're selling all of them on a little bit on, you have a chance to take over the job. And yeah, like, I mean, it's someone's eventually probably going to have to transfer out. I mean, you look at the room as it is right now and what it could look like down the line. We're talking about 4 different scholarship quarterbacks that all, want to have a chance to start. We've talked about it a little bit. Like TJ Lateef had a good spring, maybe a little further ahead than they expected. I think he's going to be a guy that challenges for this job at some point down the line. Marcus Davila has some stuff to him. Like, I'm interested to see how he continues to develop. And then, yeah, like you mentioned, Dayton's coming into the program. How he continues to develop is going to be really fascinating to watch. And then Trey's going to come on campus. If he adds the weight, Trey's going to arrive on campus ready to compete for that job too. And so I think all these guys are ready to compete, and I think all these guys are competitive people. And I think that's what it comes down to is finding those character types that are competitive people. I mean, and this is how, like, Nebraska, y'all mentioned it earlier this week and in one of y'all segments, but Nebraska operates kind of like a top 20 program, even though they don't have necessarily the results to back that up. This is what top 20 programs do. Look at Tennessee, look at Alabama, look at all these top programs, what their quarterback room looks like. Look at Texas. It's Quinn Ewers, it's Arch Manning, and then they've got Diabell coming in, and then they've got like, it's just top quarterback after top quarterback. And that's what you have to do. You have to build these rooms out that are competitive. You have to make sure that you're pretty set up at the position, because, like in Tennessee's case, at any point, something like a Nico situation could happen. You have to be set up behind him to be able to keep things rolling if you lose your starting quarterback at any point.
I talked about that for a couple of weeks now, where I said to Ravi, you're going to win some and lose some with that philosophy. Because remember, I said, their methodology to recruiting is that of a team that wins 10 or 11 games. Mm-hmm. Now, if they ever win 10 or 11 games, you already have the infrastructure in place, TV, of how you recruit. And there's this thing that I think sometimes the fan base and sometimes even we in the media miss. There's this component that they're looking for where they're way more secure and confident in their potential results than the actual results. And by that, Tim, I mean, you need to let them know that you love this place and this is where you want to be. It's way more about what this place can be for you than what you can be for this place. And not that that's a roll of the dice, but it does take some stones when you aren't winning at the level to kind of have that prowess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, there's recruitments they in like this last cycle and this cycle they could potentially won, but it's more of a, they are being very picky with who they take. And I had some questions with, they kind of reset the board a little bit amid some staff changes coming out of December into the fall. And then you zoom out and look at where, some of the guys that were higher on the board, where they've gone now and how the board is adjusted a little bit. And you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I kind of see what they were doing. Yeah, they are, one, because of the 105 roster limit, has kind of forced them to be, a little pickier. But two, yeah, this is what they want to be. I kind of think in a weird way, not in a weird way. I don't think that's the best way to put it. The way they've operated from Matt Rule down this spring, they know what they have as a program, and they're operating with a confidence of, we know what we have as a program. We know what we're going to accomplish here in 2025. Like they are moving in such a self-confident way that it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, I feel pretty confident that they're going to have a good year this fall. Like, because the way they are operating, the way they've built this thing out is so dependent on them having a good fall that, and there's no doubts about it. Like, I think from Matt Rule down to Dylan, I think the comfort that everyone's shown, just the buzz that everyone's shown, talking to recruits and listening to them talk about how, yeah, the buzz around Nebraska is unlike anything it's been before. Like, it's a really exciting time to be around that program. They're loving being at practice. They're loving all of that. Like, I'm leaning towards this being a good fall for them, not only because they have kind of no choice, but because the confidence across the entire program is at such an all-time high level.
Tim, let me ask you about the 26 class a little bit here because, obviously with Trae Taylor, we fast forward a year to 27, but we sit here at the beginning of May and Nebraska still has just 3 commits in 26. How do you see, and I know we've talked about this a little bit before, but how do you see the rest of this class playing out? And I mean, are we talking about a class that may only be like 10 or 12 guys?
I don't think 10 or 12. I think 10 or 12 is a little short, but I think it's just going to be closer to 15, maybe like around that number. Like, it's going to be a smaller class, and I would say just like patience. I think that the guys are going to come. I mean, you look at the OV slate for the summer. I think last time I looked, it's 25 guys on there as we've got confirmed. And there's a few others I'm working to confirm dates on that are planning to visit, just don't have a date locked in. I think they could get up to 30, if not over 30 official visitors here in the month of June. And that's when things start to roll. Like, something to keep in mind with how all of this is going right now. A lot of these recruits are waiting for official visits because official visits are the opportunity for them to come with their parents and potentially their agent and actually sit down and talk NIL and actually figure out, okay, where's the market? Where, like who has the most competitive offer, all of that. And so it's not the final step for a lot of these guys, but NIL is obviously a factor in some of these recruitments now. And that's why, like official visit season's kind of when these guys are getting an opportunity to negotiate and at least discuss it. And so that's where I think a post OV season, you're going to see a lot of movement, and more than maybe ever before, because one, these guys are trying to get things done before their senior season, but two, they have to wait till official visit season to actually sit down and make some of these or talk NIL.
It's interesting because especially on the heels of, I'm going to keep harping on Kirby Smart's interview about, going through spring ball and how many guys hadn't been through spring ball 3 times. He was a little taken aback and they can't practice the Georgia way. And you heard Ryan Day talk about, listen, if NIL is the first thing you're talking about, like, you're not coming here. We've heard Coach Freeman say, this is not going to be about money. Now, I get it. The cynic in a lot of fans are going to be like, Yeah, right. We'll see when it comes to winning. We've seen Penn State operate like this, and they'll be loaded. It just seems like, Tim, at least as I'm trying to put these coaching interviews and pressers together, they want control back, obviously, right? Nobody wants to just cede control to the youth movement. Do you get the sense that that sentiment is being felt by folks that are contributing money to the program too, where it's like, hey, we'll support you, but damn it, like just be smart, like spend wisely. How many of these Nico situations do you need to see before you guys you can help recalibrate the market and the value as positions of leadership just as much as anything else? It seems like coaches want this back.
Yeah, it's you're seeing a more like
Dan,
you're starting to see
give me that.
programs. Yeah, you're starting to see programs take a more calculated approach as a result of boosters wanting a more calculated result. Because yeah, like you mentioned, like at the end of the day, there's expected to be a return on investment. The money just isn't ever flowing, with nothing to show for it. Like the numbers floating around Texas now, it's not 35 to 40 million. That's a little extreme. But yeah, there's a
And how about
significant amount.
even Sark? Even Sark says, hey,
Mhm.
you have one time, one opening, one stretch to talk about money. After that, we're not having this conversation again. Are we clear? They don't seem to have any issues. Like it can be done in this day and age if the adults are the adults.
Yep. And again, like I mentioned it with Sark before, they run that thing like an NFL program. They do a really good job of keeping things in house and making sure guys and they hold everyone to the same standard. And that's from Archman. And it certainly helps for them right now that they have the shining example of Arch in the locker room, a guy that everyone in that program loves, of being like, hey, like you can do it differently in this day and age. You can sit down on the bench and you can bide your time and you could do all these things like Arch having Arch and his personality and the way the Manning family has approached all of this, like the unique way they've approached all of this, helps instill that culture and reinforce that culture to guys in the locker room. But I mean, I would say in Nebraska's end specifically, I think what Nebraska's done a really good job of is still treating these recruitments like recruitments. Like they
Yep.
do a really good job, like I've mentioned many times before, of building these relationships out and making guys feel comfortable. Where all these guys, when they talk about Nebraska, they talk about everything but NIL, and then NIL becomes like this final, like, okay, hey, like at the end, it's kind of like, okay, well, everyone's going to be offering NIL. As long as it's competitive, it's probably going to end up being Nebraska. Like that's what I'm saying when I'm saying June's going to be like this
In
kind of
some weird,
negotiating.
bizarro world, that philosophy that you just dictated almost worked with Marty. Like,
Yeah.
I, I mean, they're consistent in their philosophy. You want
Yeah.
Nebraska doing business like that.
Exactly. And people can get upset about like, oh, well, why are they the highest bidder? Why are they whatever? You have to stick to your guns and how you recruit and your process, no matter who it is. And that's what they're going to do. It doesn't matter if it's Trey Taylor coming up this summer. They're going to have Ryan Mosley, a top wide receiver target on campus, and they're going to have a competitive offer out there for him. But they're not going to be the highest bidder in that recruitment because they don't need to be. They have checked off so many other boxes that one, they don't need to be, and two, for them, it's like, hey, this is our market. This is our budget for a wide receiver, a top wide receiver target in this class. This is what we're going to be working with. And same thing for other top guys on campus. When Titan Davis comes to town, when Valdon Sone comes to town, when all these top targets come to town, all of these discussions are going to be, well, here's what the value is. Here's what the market is for a Big Ten linebacker. Here's what the market is for this. And we're going to have an offer in that market, but we're not going to go above that.
So go ahead.
No. I was going to go to running back here for a second.
So I was just going to say real quick kind of about this NIL thing still. This is a genuine question, Tim, because I don't know the answer. Do you think that either last year when Dylan signed at Nebraska or this year in the offseason that Nebraska was offering the most NIL money to Dylan Raiola? Or would someone have paid more for Dylan Raiola?
I think specifically this offseason, I think someone would have paid more.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, and we love it when it works out with like Dylan Raiola, right? But then we kind of lose our minds with a Marty Brown. We're like, oh, why weren't we the highest offer? It's like, no, this is even with a guy like Dylan, like this is how they operate, right?
Yeah.
Like that to me, I think is to a DB's point where it's like you want Nebraska to operate this way because it does work.
Over the
Yeah.
long haul, for sure.
Yes.
And I got to pit this against the backdrop of their culture, Tim, because that's the part we're afraid to talk about because we don't really know what it is because we're not in it. We just hear them talk about kind of this vague term
And
of
we haven't seen the fruits we want yet.
yeah, where I talk about guys cheering for other guys or competitive culture or why guys are so aren't as willing to hop in the portal. Like clearly, if the eggs are starting to settle in the skillet, they're not trying to really rock the flavor boat with selling their soul for money, right? Like they kind of like how you alluded, you talked in reference to they believe they know what they're dealing with, kind of their talent level. I'll take it one step further. I think they have a really good understanding of the players on that campus too, and where the tenor of the team is. They're not nearly willing to compromise that by being out of pocket about money.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it comes out of culture, but like again, zoom out, talk about not just Marty Brown, but like all of these misses. When you see a miss out there, and you're like, well, and the word is it does, the NIL is at least a factor in there. It's like, well, again, like you mentioned, Nebraska's not going to really compromise anything for a guy. Like they want people that want to be here, and ultimately, that's how you want to build a program in this day and age when like you see like fans complaining about everything's about money. Well, Nebraska's not doing that. So like
I agree.
you're complaining about a made up issue. You're complaining about a zoomed out issue, but you're the team you're supporting specifically is doing things the right way.
100 man. Good. Put screenshot that for the guys in the back. Let me ask you something about the running back position in particular, Tim, with Georgia and Ohio State and Oregon and Texas and Notre Dame and Penn State. Schools that are going to be in everybody's top, even Clemson. And I get with Klubnik, but they're going to be able to run the ball. Do you feel like Nebraska, with how they value or what they're saying about the running back position as it relates to what they need to do for the end game in this offense, do you feel like it matches up? Like the sentiment about the running back room and the running back position adds up to like kind of what we're seeing actually play out? And if you do or don't, is that where you think the disconnect or the consternation comes in terms of hand wringing about the running back position as it relates to Nebraska historically?
Yeah, I think there's a financial element to this conversation and like a football element to this conversation. From a football element, it's a hey, we haven't seen enough from Quentin Ives and Mekhi Nelson to truly believe that what the staff is saying about them is real. And then they also took two high school running backs that we think have some stuff, but we don't know exactly how ready they're going to be for the fall. And then there's the financial element of this of, okay, well, there's a certain budget for each position. This is how much Nebraska spent at each position. And running back, relative to the NFL, is one of those positions that you have to have a certain amount of a cap on how much you spend. And so they're not going to go above that cap. They're not going to for them from a financial standpoint, they look and they can say, hey, we've invested this much into the running back position. We have done our due diligence in investing into the position relative to the rest of the conference, relative to the country. Will it work out? It's ultimately dependent on, do Ives and Mekhi Nelson live up to the hype? Can they play? I, for one, have some confidence specifically in like a Mekhi Nelson being a guy in this offense. And yeah, I mean, I would be a little concerned about the depth. It's like, okay, if Emma Johnson goes down, yeah, the running game takes a huge step back. But between Emma Johnson, between Quentin Ives and Mekhi Nelson, between some of the stuff you might be able to do with other guys in the offense, potentially lining them up in the backfield, I think there's going to be enough of a run game. And I also don't think what the staff said about wanting to run the ball this fall or spring is wrong. I mean, from players down, from coaches down, the talk this spring has been, yeah, they throw the ball, but we really want to run the ball. Like we're really emphasis on
the line together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to take advantage of that. I mean, clearly Spindler is a much better run blocker than he is in pass pro.
Mm-hmm.
You could maybe say the same thing about Latovsky, even though I think he's
pretty good in general.
Yeah, like
yeah.
Justin
And you
Evans.
can say it for Pritchett. You can say it for Pritchett, absolutely.
Yeah, you want to play to these guys' strengths, right?
Right, exactly. And that's part of this whole conversation too. The running game ultimately relies on what's up front. And if you're confident in what's up front is can be maulers, can move guys in the run game, can create space for you. It's nice to have Emmett Johnson back there. It's nice to have like a star back there. But if the holes are open and it doesn't matter really who's back there. As long as they can hit the hole, you're good.
So, Tim, it's kind of funny because as you're talking about, if Emmett goes down, they're in some trouble. But I think back and I go, okay, at what position is that not true about? But
yeah, exactly. That's football. Like
we seem to be way more concerned about running back depth than we are at some of these other ones. Like, obviously, we know if your quarterback goes down, you're in trouble, right? But I mean, even last year with like corner, right? At the beginning of the year, if you had told anybody that they would lose their 2 starting corners or guys they thought were going to be starting, Bly Hill was going to start coming out of spring, and Tommy Hill obviously was a starter and was a potential high NFL draft pick before that went downhill. And if you had said to people before the season that neither one of those guys were going to finish your season as corners, people would be like, well, who's going to play? I mean, the Sierra Wright kid's only been on campus since like July, and then we've got all these other guys. I mean, Donovan Jones is going to start the bowl game. He hasn't played at all this. Like, people would have lost their minds. But for some reason with running backs, it's just why is running back so much more emphasized when like we don't talk about the same conversation when we're talking about corners or safeties or anywhere else?
Right. Like for me, like, I mean, the position I look at when I'm like, oh man, I have some anxiety if a guy goes down is especially with Grant Seager and entering the portal is offensive tackle. Like a guy goes down, it's like, oh, like the depth gets a little tricky there all of a sudden. But that's any position like you mentioned, and yeah, with the running back one, it's interesting too because how much do you trust the staff? Emmett Johnson wasn't the Emmett Johnson we know now when we entered the 24 season.
I keep going back to that, and people think it's a negative, but it's actually a positive because I'm a huge
EJ
guy. But we didn't value him the way that we do, and all of a sudden over an off season with 600, 500 yards and 1 touchdown, like we love him. It says more about us than it does him, and it says a huge piece about Nebraska in terms of their development. It's incredible.
Yeah, would it surprise y'all if Emmett has a really good year, moves on to the next level, and this time next year we're talking about Mekhi Nelson in the same way as like being this lead back, being this guy that like, oh, you got your bell cow, you got your guy, and Mekhi Nelson are one of them. Connor Booth, Jamarian Parker, take one of them. But like, would it surprise me? Someone from that room emerges?
Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, shoot, Marty Brown's on campus that morning, and Mekhi Nelson has the best practice of the spring. So he literally had his best practice of the spring. I mean, they were thumping. So it does not surprise me. It would not surprise me at all.
Yeah, me neither.
That's our guy, Tim Verghese, Inside Nebraska. Great stuff as always, Tim. Appreciate the time. Have a good weekend.
Yes, sir. Likewise. Appreciate y'all.